who is a political analyst. Elvis, thank you so much for your time. I mean, the ANC, for example, if I may borrow from what they said during the briefing, they talk about how the passing of Comrade Jessie, and I'm quoting, is a great loss, not only to the family, but to the democratic movement and the country as a whole. As a committed internationalist and former diplomat, not only will she be mourned by South Africa, but by colleagues and comrades on the African continent and in the international progressive movement. This talks about the larger void that the ANC is going to be feeling when it comes to this loss on multiple fronts.
Yeah, firstly, let me pass my humble greetings to you and all the viewers of SABC News. Yeah, what a dark, saddening shadow overwhelming the nation of the Republic of South Africa. A great, diligent, hyper-working and highly committed, a stateswoman, because we are used in English, we are used to statesman, but I'll refer to her as a stateswoman who was, more than equal to the task that she was ever given. You remember she served as a loyal personal assistant to President Nelson Mandela. She served in government, she served in, community activism, she served even as an ambassador to Mozambique. She served in different responsibilities without any complaint. And one thing that I think as a nation we have to admire so much, about Umama Jessie Duarte was, a no-nonsense approach, highly principled, revolutionary morality and ethics defined her entire life. And she was a no-nonsense kind of a leader. She didn't tolerate, irrespective of how much she knows you, she doesn't tolerate nonsense. You remember at some point when she believed that the mainstream media was very harsh and hostile, to ANC, developments. She was very hard with some of the journalists to take them on, but it was that kind of a rare breed. But one thing, I think the most defining aspect of her life was when she has to sign off on the suspension of then ANC Secretary General, Elvis Masoga, because it was popularly known that, Jessie Duarte and Elvis Masoga are very close within political cycles. But true to her loyalty to the ANC, she has to take a decision that might even work against her longtime friend, Elvis Masoga. So it speaks to her integrity and loyalty to the ANC.
And also listening to some of the speakers, alluding to what you've just spoken about, saying that she was not afraid to even stand on her own at some point. And I'd like us to probe that, further in just a moment. But let's look at the role that she played. I mean, you listen to various speakers. They talk about her as an engine of the ANC in the last 20 years. Let's talk about the gap that she leaves now when it comes to this important support role that she played when it comes to her institutional memory.
Yeah, I think even as a researcher, when we interact, with different leaders of the ANC in relation to, the character of their former Secretary General, Jessie Duarte, you will understand one thing very critical, that she realized that, the way party political factionalism has become so embedded in the ANC, the best way to make sure that ANC resolutions are implemented is to rise beyond factionalism, is to cut across them. Because if you don't do that, then you are going to be very harsh on a member who is associated with a rival faction and be soft on somebody because the person is associated with your beloved faction. So when it comes to Jessie Duarte, this no-nonsense kind of a character, it was very healthy and developmental for the ANC, because in an organization where factionalism is rife, you need this kind of a leader who is very sharp as an axe when it comes to expecting compliance, when it comes to implementation of resolutions of the organization. That's why even former President Nelson Mandela, adored, Jessie Duarte, because Mandela saw that rare character in him, that whether you are Jessie Duarte's close friend or relative or comrade, but when it comes to ANC decisions or resolution, she was, true to principle. She didn't even take sides. And I think it's something that maybe the living generation of ANC cadres and leaders can emulate going forward.
And one of, the other things that we just touched on were the difficult moments where she did not shy away, as you say, to implement what the party, would have agreed upon at that particular point in time. And one cannot even help but think back to that moment when former President Jacob Zuma was to then resign. She was among those that needed to break the news.
Yes, because that's what it means to be a statesman or a stateswoman. That's what it means. You need to take decisions that are in the best interest of your organization or even in the best interest of your country, even though they might step on the toes of some of your friends, neighbors, or relatives, but you realize the bigger picture. The larger goodwill is that, let me take this decision that will serve the general interest of my country. And that's what makes her such a great, rare quality, leader. Because we must never allow any organization that allow individual ego to prevail over, the greatness of an organization. Such organization will collapse. And that is a danger that is looming even in the ANC right now, whereby individual egos have been allowed to prevail over, the broader interest of the organization. But if you can have leaders in the mold of, Jessie Duarte, when it comes to decisions of an organization, you implement them to the latter, irrespective of who is involved. And I think that will make the ANC a greater liberation movement.
You alluded to it. I mean, a lot of talk has been had around the difficult time that the ANC is finding itself in now, even the chairperson alluding to that as well. I mean, one thinks about the fact that in the lead up to the 54th conference, for example, at Nasrec, the ANC was really faced with serious, problems and allegations of tribalism at the time, and she took the bull by the horn, as some have described, and, really dealt with these issues. There were also issues with the structures, which she did not shy away from doing that. And as you now say, it appears to be a difficult road ahead then for the ANC, particularly when we look at the regional conferences that could not even adopt credentials, a role she would have really, occupied, as some are saying, that now the ANC is going to be limping towards conference.
No, absolutely. Remember that, the secretariat or the office of the secretariat, it is a living engine of an organization because they monitor and play oversight over day-to-day activities of the organization. Like the position of Secretary General and Deputy Secretary General are the most vital and critically important, organs of the ANC. So the quality in that office will determine the quality of ANC in terms of advancement. So, and my advice is that, given the character that, Jessie Duarte, emulated, then ANC must go for a kind of a person who is insulated from factionalism, a person who will be able to be seen as a glue that unites and binds all members and leaders together when you elect a Secretary General and even a Deputy Secretary General, so that even the two rival factions, whenever they want to come, they must see the Secretary General or the Deputy Secretary General as a glue that binds them together. When they are wrong, you will be able to say you are out of order, and when they are correct, you will be able to say you are correct. So I think the ANC must start to identify that character because it's very much important. But because if you vote for a factionalist, then obviously the rival faction will never have faith and confidence in the decisions that the official will take. So that kind of a person is very much, healthy for the ANC going forward.
Now, Elvis, how easy or difficult is what you're saying they must do going to be? Looking at the fact that we saw in the previous days those rules that were released by the Electoral Committee on how they need to conduct themselves when it comes to, the conference in December. They talk about, how they don't want slates. For example, you can't have predetermined outcomes. They talk about the, you can't be negative towards another, group that is also going to be contesting the candidates themselves have to open their books. So how easy will it be then to identify this particular individual when you look at the current ANC?
I think the most, powerful mistake the ANC made was after, President Nelson Mandela stepped down as ANC president, when they started to allow the masses, the general membership, to give direction and even guidance to the ANC. I think that was a powerful mistake the ANC leadership made, because leaders are there to serve as an epitome of direction and guidance for the broader membership. In any organization where you allow the masses to lead, it is prone, to fall into paralysis. That's why even right now you find a situation whereby the general membership decide who leads or who doesn't lead. And in as far as I'm concerned, that is not good for a vanguard movement. Take an example about the South African Communist Party. I like the way they craft their leadership. They allow the Central Committee to debate for months as to who are credible leaders, who are equal to the task to lead the South African Communist Party going forward. And when they come to an elective national conference, the leaders have already caucused, they've already briefed their membership, so they just rubber stamp what they've agreed. And I think that's what the ANC must go. Leaders must have time to analyze and critique the kind of leaders that are suitable for the ANC, the current generation, rather than allowing members with vested interest, some they just join to get tenders to decide who must be the president or who must not be the president. And I think that's why the ANC must start to say, the National Executive Committee must caucus and say who are the cadres who are credible to can occupy the position of president, position of secretary general, position of treasurer. When they've agreed, then they sell the idea to their branches, the general membership, and when they have a national conference, they just come to rubber stamp that distance. But to allow the masses to lead, that is a recipe for disaster.
Just stay on the line for us there. That is political analyst Elvis Masoga. As you can see, live visuals there as the motorcade is now making its way into the Westpark Cemetery. We'd like to welcome our SABC 2 viewers for this special broadcast as we bring you the life and times of Jessie Duarte there. This is where the funeral service is going to be taking place. It is done in accordance with Muslim burial rites. And we do understand that as soon as the hearse comes, it's going to be parked on the right side of the marquee, and the casket is expected to be draped in ANC flags. And of course, the males are going to be expected to then go into the marquee. Privacy in this regard is very important, but I'm not alone this afternoon. I am with my colleague Unati Patyashe, who is, of course, with us for this particular broadcast. As we look at Unati, some of the rights that are going to be observed this afternoon. Critical to note that it is going to be quite important when it comes to respect, because even the marquee at some point is going to be closed off and only opened to a larger crowd a little later on.
Absolutely, Bongiwe, and very good afternoon to our SABC 2 viewers who have also just joined us. Of course, we are marking the special funeral of Jessie Duarte. And of course, what is important is to also note that this is a special official funeral